So, some of you might be aware that Power Rangers used to be a TV show and now it isn't.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
No. Yeah, but that's the thing I'm bringing up. Like, we all know Power Rangers to some extent, but I don't think there's many people who've watched it all the time. Like, people remember it, but they remember like a 5-year period before they stop watching.
Yes.
Yeah, that's normal. But but it brings up a question. Like, most people didn't look into the backstory about what it was or how it was made or anything. So you end up with like, yeah, but what was it? So, as it's no longer on, I thought it was a good time to do what was Power Rangers. Incidentally, I originally planned this when I thought Power Rangers was going to be cancelled 6 years ago, and then they didn't cancel it. So this panel is probably a 5-minute long version of that panel. Okay. So, to begin, the concept. What were they going for when they said we're going to make this show? And the answer is it comes down to 2 issues. 1, Tokusatsu is mankind's greatest creation. As a result of this, you're going to have a market for this media outside of Japan. But the skills to create this media do not exist outside of Japan at the time.
There are seats over there, sir.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to figure out how to do this one thing. Sorry.
No worries. So, to get a Western Tokusatsu, you are going to have to cooperate with Japan in some way. Now, the obvious thing to do would be to create a sub or a dub of a Japanese show. However, there's one problem with this. Yeah, they don't watch anything dubbed, they don't watch anything subbed. It doesn't happen. So, you need to come up with a method of getting something from the Japanese production to the West while making it so that when people move their mouths, the lips match the words being said and those words are in English. It's a simple problem which is more complex than you'd think. Now, Power Rangers was not actually the original attempt to do something like this. There was, in fact, a sub and a dub of Go Rangers. One was done in the Philippines, one was done in Hawaii. It was just a full sub and dub of the series. It doesn't seem to have had much cultural impact, but it certainly seems to have spread awareness of the genre in those parts of the world, at least. So, as a surprise villain, and villain I mean hero and hero I mean villain, we have Stan Lee. In the 1970s, as you can tell by his moustache. So what it was is, Marvel at this point were actually doing alright. This was one of the times when they weren't almost bankrupt. So, they had their own TV division and produced rap shows like that. Thor. Did any watch the original Thor movie? It doesn't look like the ones you watched recently. Anyway, so what they thought was, let's work with Toei to make a show. So they started talking back and forth. They actually came up with toy rights. Marvel toys are distributed by Toei in Japan, for example. So it is an ongoing relationship. But the 2 things were, 1, they produced a Spider-Man Tokusatsu, which is just fantastic. It's a brilliant show.
And say it was being made canon into the Spider.
I know, it's so good. And they also decided, let's produce an Avengers-themed Sentai, which is why that guy is Black Panther. Miss America, and then the other and obviously, as you can tell, it didn't quite make it fully that way to production, but anyway, the plan was to take, hang on, let me make sure I say the right one. Battle
Fever J.
No, Sun Vulcan was going to be brought to the West as an adaptation. The problem is that when Stan and Margaret Loesch, the head of Marvel TV, got together, no studio was willing to accept it. Like, he was told, oh no, it's too violent. They tried to edit it down. They only made a pilot episode, and that's never been publicly released, so I can't actually compare. There's rumours that it was similar to Power Rangers, there's also rumours that it was just a dub, but again, no verification on any of it, and no one really went into details. But I said they just couldn't find someone to buy it off them. So that was basically the end of that venture until Haim Saban popped up. Now, Haim Saban was on a business trip where he says he saw a Sentai. It's possible that that was one of the Go Ranger subs or dubs that I mentioned earlier, but it's not. Again, he's a fairly private bloke. He doesn't talk about a lot. So, now what Saban Entertainment did was they produced fantastic cartoons and shit cartoons. And those kids' game shows, you know the ones where you end up screaming at the TV, like, what do you mean you don't know what an apple is? You know, the ones where they find the dumbest children you've ever seen in your life. That kind of thing. And he basically hit on this, roughly the same idea. And they took, which one was it? They took Bioman and they made a Power Ranger style adaptation where it is live action footage shot in the US combined with Japanese fight scenes. And they shopped this around and they found no buyers. Until they found Fox Entertainment, that was already broadcasting their cartoons, now had a new member of upper management, which was Margaret Loesch, who'd been working on Marvel TV and had pitched roughly the same idea a few years previously herself. So, being how TV shows used to be made, they were paid to make 52 episodes as an initial run. Not 10, not 20, 52, because that's what television used to be when we were real people. And I should have left on the other job. Anyway, so once this was hired, they literally said, right, we'll go back to Toei, we'll pick a series. They picked Zyuranger, basically on the logic of, this looks good, and there's dinosaurs in it, kids like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It was literally no deeper than that. And incidentally, it was also almost entirely arbitrary that it was Sentai that was picked for this. There's numerous Tokusatsu that were equally as successful to Sentai at the time, so we could have seen a very different version of things. Is that the same one again?
Press the wrong button.
I pressed the wrong button like a genius. So, what's the process? It's actually fairly simple. Oh, as you can guess from this, the majority of the staff did not speak any Japanese. So there was it wasn't a case of, oh, what parts of this can we adapt? No, they didn't understand the episodes they were watching. There was no ability to translate. They literally just scrubbed through episodes and looked for suitable footage. The props were sent over from the Sentai production to America for this, and it's a lot more collaborative than you think. Like, there's times where you can see, oh, we've asked for a new version of this prop to be made because the actor's larger or something. Or, as it went on, they increasingly had Japanese filmed footage that was not in Sentai because they wanted to do a particular fight scene and the source footage wasn't available. So
at one point, Sentai got Power Rangers to film them some footage.
Yes,
as for an opening sequence.
Yes, it became a lot more involved and, you know, a friendly relationship than some people would think. But again, the main thing was it is just look through an episode, that punch looks very good, let's put that in an episode. And the scripts are weird because it will say things like, you know, Jason says they all morph, and then they all morph. Episode 37, minute 15, take fight scene, edit out blue putties. You know, it's not, I can't think of really another example of media that is produced that way, other than some very cheap Chinese martial arts films that were edited out of two slower paced Chinese martial arts films. It's a genre, it's weird. So, I thought I'd just share this one. This is a chart that is sadly not entirely complete of how much original footage was used per series. It goes down to 40 here, notably in a series that's not very well regarded, but they're actually in the high 90s. So, but actually when you think back on it, yeah, the majority of it is them talking to each other in civilian form, so it's not actually that surprising. But yes, at times it's surprising how very little Japanese footage was used. So, to begin with the beginning, this is what a lot of people actually mean when they say Power Rangers.
Yes.
It sells toys today. It had a number of surprisingly good video games. I recommend the Game Gear and the Sega Mega Drive ones particularly. They're not going to get re-released, so acquire them. But yeah, it was just exactly what you think of when it comes to it. But there was one problem. Because they kept with the same suits and same characters, they began to have to increasingly work around things. Like, fight scene footage was increasingly used in an episode and then used in a later episode. Because the Japanese aren't making this footage anymore. So, and you're having to commission increasing amounts of footage like, oh, we need a shot of the Red Ranger holding this Zord summoning device because that didn't exist. So eventually they were going to have to make at least a small change. And so, early in I giggled when I was writing it as well. But when you look at the time, this show was shockingly diverse. It was, I think we all remember that when kids would play, oh, we're the Power Rangers as kids, there was someone for everyone to play. I mean, if you were the black kid, you only had one choice, but still. There was, it actually did appeal to everyone, and it remained that way pretty much through its entire production. I mean, there've been Middle Eastern people, Native American people, just Latinos. It's fully covered the diverse spectrum of people, and the only issue is that this might have added to the number of complaints they got.
Hey, really?
Oh yeah, well, one thing was notably there were complaints about how violent it was,
Yeah.
but notably it was getting complained about being violent more than other violent shows that had more pale casts, shall we say. But it certainly seems to have, changed what was acceptable on television to some extent, which is not bad for a show produced for a budget of 90s. So, we then move on to, some people consider this part of the original era still. I like to separate it out a little. We go on to the era where every year we get a new outfit, new set of powers, new toys. We won't buy these toys. We've got some toys for you. Turbo did not go down very well. And by not down very well, I mean it did worse than Beetleborgs. They got baked into a giant pizza in one episode.
Its source material was...
Let me tell you, looking back on it,
yeah.
that scene looks worse than you remember. It looks like 5 people covered in a sheet of roughly pizza-shaped cloth.
That's what it is.
So they decided, we're going to run this. The series was still very profitable, but weirdly, it was in this odd position where it's very profitable and relatively expensive to make for a children's show. So even when it's making a lot of money, it's always marginal on how much they're willing to, because it's risky. It's like we could make 10 other shows that are less risky for this one that is a success. So people start to, worry about it. So they decided to run things down with Power Rangers in Space. Power Rangers in Space also featured a crossover with live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And those suits are more cursed than you would believe. Sometimes you can see the actors, just the painted actor's face through the mouth of the suit, and it's like looking into the jaws of hell. So what they decided let's put some effort in, and then at the end of it, our beloved mentor Zordon gets exploded and turns into a sci-fi magic wave of ooh that goes through the universe and either redeems or destroys all the existing villains. And there we go. Essentially, ending the series. Except, I said they put some effort in. So, this was my Power Ranger. This was the one I pretended to be when we were all picking one.
Same.
Yeah, he could build a car, he had glasses, he did gymnastics, which is something I was actually medically prescribed to do. You know,
What, because your back's fucked?
yes, I genuinely, like, this was my life, and once he stopped being a Power Ranger, he remained on the show for several years. He was only leaving during Power Rangers Turbo, making him the last member of the original 5 to leave the show. Now, it later turned out that, well, here's the thing, Power Rangers was not a union film. And what this means is that you tend to get very high levels of unprofessionalism. And so, among the crew, notably, it's been confirmed multiple times, not the cast, the crew did homophobic abuse against David Yost. And one day he essentially walked off set. Honestly, I was pretty, well, I wasn't happy when I found that out, and I always had a hope that things could improve later on, but these things happened. It was the 90s weren't as happy as we like to remember them. I thought I'd put this here because it is the time this was happening. There were other attempts to do similar things. You had Beetleborgs, which I mentioned earlier, and VR Troopers. Both of these were using the footage from the show Metal Heroes. And they were actually both successful and only ended when they ran out of source footage. So they weren't flops, but again, it's like they made 3 years of this sub-series. That's over now. Okay, the show has to end. Then you had the attempt to do a Kamen Rider, which this isn't the worst one. This is the one that everyone forgets about. It started off with a 3-episode crossover with Power Rangers to give it the best go of it, and no one watched it and no one cared, and they shouldn't have, because it was the equivalent of a loaf of very white bread. It was just that. Do you enjoy not buttering your bread? Then you'll enjoy Master Rider.
I vaguely remember liking it, but I can't remember why.
It's just not.
I think it was the motorbike.
What thoughts here? I mean, it's that a Joe in the background.
I can't remember what that was.
The short, yellow eyes.
So, other companies attempted the same thing. We have Kamen Rider, which was made by a company that only made this show. It won an award, I don't know why.
Daytime Emmys.
Daytime Emmys, yes. Then there was...
Gridman's.
Yes, Gridman was adapted into Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. It's on S, I've got to pronounce it differently.
That's just how it was in the 90s.
This was interesting because it was done by Subarayas, so the company that made the original made the adaptation. And it was in no way a failure. Again, they just did one series of it and then ended it. They seem actually proud of it. It's quite easy to find it on DVD. They make references to it from time to time.
They named the Gridman sequel after it.
Exactly. They're quite... Yeah, it's an interesting... There are also a few other shows that were entirely original footage, but those shows tend to...
Mystic Acts of TNO.
They're also a bit outside the scope, as it were. They're not doing the same process. They're not taking something and adapting it. They're mimicking. And, I mean, does anyone remember Tattooed Teenagers from Beverly Hills? Forget it.
That was a parody.
It was a parody. It was a parody TV series that they made and put on TV. It was shit. So, now, we've decided... Now, In Space was successful. Oh no, In Space was successful. Therefore, we can't stop making the show. So, what we get is, we've got an ongoing problem. Cast members have multi-year, essentially ongoing contracts. That means that they are probably at some point going to leave mid-series. Oh, now you have to do rewrites to explain why they've left. You have to bring someone else in. It's much smoother and neater, and also means you don't have to give people pay rises if they are contracted for exactly 1 year and they go away at the end of that year. And so essentially, much the same format. It's still the same world. It's not going to a new setting every year, but again, every year, new set of actors, new mentor, new location. Well, no, it's still the same location, but is becoming increasingly weirdly diverse. And like, wow, how many Power Rangers teams are in this one city? What the hell's going on?
The Marvel problem.
Indeed. But essentially, much of the same. Nothing much has shifted until the mouse attacked. Oh, so our first big crossover, and I will mark this point as the worrying point, where fans of Power Rangers began to gain control of Power Rangers.
Fandom ruins everything.
Forever Red was an alright episode, and what it was is, we get back all the Red Ranger actors and put them in one episode.
Is
and
that directed by who I think it is from the size of the explosion?
No, actually not.
Is it that
He
quarry?
was, however, doing the fight scenes.
Is it that quarry?
Yes, that one. So, literally, it was written as a sequel to a fan fiction the director wrote about for Power Rangers when he was younger. But it is the start of, we're not just doing a crossover with the previous series once a year. Like, we are willing to occasionally go bigger. We're willing to establish that this is an ongoing thing, and we're willing to do this kind of massively over-the-top fan service now. There's several more examples like this later on that, you know, you don't tend to have everyone, but you know, there's ones where they go like, we grabbed 5 blokes from previous series whose agents answered the phone call and we made a special. But yes, the March of the Mouse, dun dun dun. Actually, that's appropriate now, isn't it? So, Disney acquired Saban's cartoons. They accidentally acquired Power Rangers as well. I'm not joking. They didn't want to make Power Rangers explicitly, but they were contracted in, and the show was successful, and Bandai would have sued them if they cancelled it.
Wow.
So they did, first things first, we moved somewhere cheap, namely roughly here in New Zealand. It took me ages to find the rough. I found the film studio on a map and then I lined it up. It took me bloody. I was probably slightly off as well, but still. So we get a bunch of new series. Wild Force is notably in both because Disney took over midway through that one's run, which resulted in early on a character was killed, but they were going to bring them back so they didn't really kill someone, except production changed halfway through. That character stayed fucking dead. So Disney was the first time someone's parents were murdered on Power Rangers.
I mean, to be fair, they don't like it when the parents are alive, Disney.
No, it cheers them up, to be honest. So, the main differences you get here are the explosions are larger, the fight scenes tend to be less grounded, there's a lot more wire stuff, there's a lot more bloke does a thing and special effect happens rather than a fight scene happening. The writing improved, but sometimes hit big lows. You know, like it was very up and down. The acting generally improved, I assume, because good actors in New Zealand had no other jobs because Lord of the Rings wasn't being made yet. Seriously, name another TV show filmed in New Zealand. Don't actually. Name a third one. That one doesn't count. Honestly, it's a weird thing where the older fans were pretty negative on a lot of these at the time, but looking back on them, people have sort of come around to like, that one's really good, that one's really good, that one's really good. It's like more than half.
I remember Ninja Storm and Wild Force being massively popular with younger members of my family.
That's the thing as well. Kids loved all of them. It was the opinions of people like us who grew up with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it's irrelevant because the kids still loved all of it. Just to go into a couple of particular series, in Dino Thunder, that wasn't cut off when I put it on there, anyway. So, they brought back Tommy Oliver, they flew a man over to New Zealand, that's how committed they were. They couldn't have him all the time because apparently there was a small family illness, so we had to go back home, so they had his suit actor and he dubbed over it, presumably on the phone, and then he came back again. But, decent series, most interesting, again, it added to the idea of continuity can happen. And then there's Operation Overdrive, which, just the most unlikable bastards. Just, there's nothing I can point to of, this show did this wrong. So much as like, none of this. It had a semi-interesting thing where each of the villains was teamed up with one of the Rangers, and they had a more intense one-on-one rivalry, which could have been something if not for the fact that I kind of wanted to see each of the villains smash their heads in because I hated the fans. And then, so, to quote again, we decided to cancel Power Rangers. And then, oh no, the people who make Power Rangers are fans of Power Rangers. They put in some extra effort, including a man doing a good Scottish accent despite not actually being Scottish.
Wow. They made Mad Max for children.
They did.
Was it actually a good Scottish accent?
You'd be surprised.
I would be very surprised.
It's reasonable.
Some Scottish people thought he was actually Scottish.
I'm shocked.
I know.
I'm going to
Let me
say I
tell you.
don't.
Mad Max for children is just Mad Max if you're not a
You
coward.
don't buy it.
No, I don't buy it as Glasgow native.
But yes, they basically post-apocalyptic Power Rangers.
Yay!
It's before the episode series starts. The villain has unleashed nuclear war on the world.
Oh, wow.
But all of a sudden, like, these jokes are landing. You know what I mean? Like, when the fight scenes are done, they're good fight scenes. The characters are different to each other and all interesting. But it didn't do very well in viewership because Disney had moved the airing time to 5 a.m. That is how
Disney
much.
do when they want to kill the show.
That's how much Disney didn't like Power Rangers. Oh, we can cancel it if it fails in the viewing figures. We'll move it to 5 a.m.
Why didn't they like it if it was making money?
Because it has people punching each other, and Disney wanted to be happy shows at this time. Disney aren't fucked up by very bright people.
Disney, let's kill everyone's parents.
Yeah. No, it's bizarre, but it is definite.
Disney is father, Disney is mother.
So,
Disney keeps killing Mother.
once the show was
Disney.
so once, but it came out, it was popular with all the fans. It shifted a number of toys, but Disney had essentially cancelled Power Rangers. And then, but they were still under contract to produce something. So what they did was they went back to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and re-edited it to upscale it because it looked like, genuinely looking back on it, it's like watching with my glasses off. It's blurry as
They're
fuck.
trying to upscale it again now.
It does.
They're trying to upscale it again now.
I know. So what they did was they just did some upscaling. The trouble is the video effects are literally done on the video. You cannot recover those for upscaling from film. So they had to redo them all. And they went for comic book style, which hence the betrayed. That's not something I did. That was in the episode. Oddly enough though, again, kids fucking loved it. Like,
Kids are done.
they have, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
MMPR toys started to shift. Like, this is really, despite being, entirely forgettable on its own, it really reignited it. This is why you can buy so many Mighty Morphin toys these days. It really restarted stuff. They were probably planning to keep on going, like they might have just kept on doing this for more and more series, until somehow Saban returned. He bought it back again. I don't know why. He's always been somewhat of a strange bloke, Saban. But they came up with a new format. One, they're on Nickelodeon now, and Nickelodeon will not let you do a 40-episode TV series. You have to do a 22-episode series. So what they came up with, okay, we do it in a 1-2. We do Samurai and Super Samurai. So 22 episodes and 22 episodes, we adapt a full new series. They dropped the whole civilian powers things, However, it wasn't that great a show. But anyway, the biggest new thing they introduced was what they called cockpit suits, which is a way of selling an extra toy, essentially. But what it is when they're piloting the giant robot, they get a new outfit, and possibly a new weapon that is just for controlling the mecha. People have challenged the designs of these from time to time, but interestingly, they hired the design studio that does the designs for Sentai. So these are entirely Japanese designed suits. I don't know if they're Japanese produced, but the design work was handed over to the same people. the main issue they did with Samurai, the first of these series, was that they actually viewed it as a translation this time, to the extent of which the writer was credited as a translator instead of as a writer. And again, kids enjoyed it. They brought back Bulk from Bulk and Skull as an ongoing character because the kids had learned to like him from the Power Rangers. But it just, again, this is the thing. As much as I criticise, you can criticise individual series, but you go like, wow, this series wasn't very good. Kids loved it. Shit the toys. You know what I mean? It's like you can't, any criticism you have can sort of be cancelled out by it. So then they went for, what they went for with this one was, let's try, for the 1-2, let's adapt one series and then the next one. So like, you know, this one, the kids actually didn't like this one as much. It wasn't very good, and I think the pacing of it didn't really, because you're combining the two, it had a lot of flaws. But interestingly, it does provide for the greatest source of fan fiction fuel. Because what they did was, when the pirates came in, well, they can use powers of past Sentai in the Japanese footage, and some of those past Sentai scenes showed up in the adaptation. And they insisted that these were teams that did exist, but you haven't seen them on TV. So any Sentai series that hasn't been televised, you can assume there's a Power Rangers equivalent that just was off camera. So go on AO3 now, all of you. Get your work. 52 episodes per series. So then things sort of stabilised, you know, things started to settle a bit. And what we got was the final two series. It wasn't being done as a translation anymore, it was back to being original things. And it was done as the super thing, and notably they began to skip series for the first time.
Because Americans don't do trains.
Americans don't do trains.
I don't understand why Americans don't do trains.
Because they're
why
weak.
would you
They're
skip
weak.
the trains?
They don't read as well, they establish this early.
Trains.
So yes, these two, again, actually quite, this one actually pretty good. Yeah, they sort of began to go into a rhythm again, and I think it would have been ongoing, but the thing is, Saban himself is now very old. He's technically still CEO of Saban Enterprise, I think, but he sold, in like the couple of years, he sold off increasing amounts. I don't believe his company actually produces any shows anymore. You know, it's one of the ones of, this is a man who should have been retired if not for the fact that he's a CEO, you know, like. And so, they were looking for buyers. And did you know that for a while the CEO of Hasbro was actually a massive Power Rangers nerd?
Yeah. He was a Bandai during the early years of Power Rangers as well, which is why he was.
Yeah, no, he was into it. This was not a case of, I think this show can make money. This is a bloke who goes, I want Power Rangers to be on TV like it used to be. So, they start off with this. This is a direct sequel to Power Rangers RPM. So they're tying directly into the Disney stuff. There is no pretense that, oh, maybe this isn't in continuity with the previous series. No, this is a bloke screaming, I'm in continuity with the previous series. Yeah, it had much higher budget. I mean, not that high, but you know what I mean.
For what it was, yeah.
Yeah, there is effort being put into it. This is being made by fans and funded by fans at this point. Again, still quite successful, but just, you know, it's, Hasbro managed to somehow not drop the bag for what? Think of another time Hasbro not making a huge mistake.
There is no other time to ask.
Then we get something I've been waiting for about a decade at the time. So, on Netflix, and it is available on YouTube, they decided to do a special. It was called Once and Always. David Yost, who had been chased off due to homophobic abuse, had written a summary, an idea. And he came to the current Hasbro production, and they said yes. And he didn't write the final script, but what it is, it's a somber. It's not dark. It's not, but it's a somewhat. It's a reunion show essentially. We get back 7 of the original 5 due to cast changes, which means that no, not everyone gets to have a suit. We go back 7. We go back a few people, and we basically go into almost a tribute to Trey Thang, who was the original Yellow Ranger, who had sadly at that point she'd passed away very young in a car accident, and so the episode is a tribute to her. Her character had passed away in this special, and they basically just do a thing about dealing with loss as a Power Rangers thing, and it was genuinely, I did cry a bit watching it, and it is it genuine, but at the same time I'm like, you know, sometimes you get to forgive people, sometimes things do get to improve.
Well, they did say it was never tracks.
It is mostly themed around these two as the main
It's about
characters.
them raising it. It's about gay them raising it.
It is actually quite gay. So, at the end, we return to the beginning. At this point, we get Dino Fury, which is obviously it's got Dino in the name. You know, it's trying to be Mighty Morphin in as many ways as it possibly can.
There's a reason that's the only original Sentai I've actually tried watching. Because dinosaurs are new.
Dinosaurs are cool. Lord Zed showed up in it, well, not the original, it's a clone, because obviously the original was redeemed when the big TV Remember? I mentioned that several minutes ago. So, he shows up in it. Only one episode worth putting on. And they do this series, and again, it went down well. It was a good series. It featured a lot more, again, though, continuity, references to all the things, a big crossover episode, like, again, clearly made by fans of the series. At this point, by the way, partway through, so this was done in the original Super format, but they didn't call it that anymore, they just did it as 2 series. And the second one, Nickelodeon had dropped them, so they moved over to Netflix, which actually resulted in an increase in money, and tell you what, I reckon these series probably have the most original footage out of anything. The series 2 begins with a 5-minute long fight scene across a bunch of rooftops that they filmed on actual rooftops. And I'm like, who paid for this? Then what happened was, they got hired to not do another series, but do 10 more episodes of Dino Fury called Cosmic Fury, which had all original suits, all original fight scenes, all original weapons. They only reused the mecha footage, and had David Yost back as the mentor, and firmly established that the Once and Always special is in continuity with this. Like, they use the same sets, you know, like, it's not ambiguous. The clone of Lord Zed became the main villain for it. There was rumours of it tying in heavily with the comics, but that, you know, it is. Like, the same concepts are coming up, but it's clearly not the same. It went down well, it was a good thing. My lad Billy got to be in the first episode and the last episode of Power Rangers, and then that was it. No one paid for them to make any more Power Rangers after that.
Because the CEO of Hasbro that was the big fan died.
Yep. It's worth pointing out, it's not like they don't see money being made from it anymore, but it's just like, it just sort of trying to, I think part of the problem is the broadcast. Like, Power Rangers is not a show you can make in 20 episodes, especially you can't make it in 10 episodes. You need 40, 50 episodes. And the modern streaming things and the way children's TV is high these days does not fit with it. And I think that is the main problem with it. No one's making 52-episode children's TV anymore. But yes, it didn't really go out with any big failure or anything. They just didn't pay them to make any more. So, the films. This one, entirely original footage, begins with a skydiving sequence.
Amazing.
There's reasons.
Yeah. And it had rude humour. Genuinely. The villain gets kicked in the balls as the final attack. It's fantastic. But when I was a kid, genuinely the coolest shit I'd ever seen. And looking back on it now, Still high up there. It's still fucking great. But financial failure, because they're giving it this kind of budget, and Power Rangers isn't this kind of show, it's this kind of show.
Sugar CG swords.
Yeah, dear God, how many episodes could they have made with the cost of those CG dolls? So they went for something cheaper, but not actually that much cheaper, not cheaper enough. Power Rangers Turbo, the movie, was again all original footage. Like, you wouldn't think you're looking at it. So it was still quite expensive to make. And it was just like, this one not only was financially a failure, but it was, no one enjoyed it either. Like, I was a 6-year-old and I was bored watching a Power Rangers movie. It's a talent. It's genuinely, and that one is in continuity. So like, the start of the Power Rangers Turbo TV series is this movie, and I genuinely think that that's part of the reason Turbo did so badly, was that it started with just shit. Anyway.
It also did so badly in the States that when it came out here, it went straight to video.
Yes, which was a good choice. So, then, weirdly, a TV and DVD only movie that I would honestly call a special, not for the fact that they released it outside, it wasn't connected to any series, it was released between 2 series. It's just a crossover special between MMPR and Samurai. But interestingly,
That's Operation Overdrive, isn't it? No, sorry, no, not Operation Overdrive.
No, it's RPM, get yourself together.
Using MMPR.
Yeah. So, what they did with it was, it's just like a 45-minute long special that's a crossover episode, you know. But, interestingly, the RPM Red, he had joined an actors union since his show had finished, so he never takes his helmet off, and oh no, it's a different guy whose name happens to be an acronym. But yeah, that one actually was a financial success. Then there came the reboot, which is, it's just there. It's the only one that he doesn't even try to sort of be in universe with the rest of them, but you know, it was an attempt.
The reboot, was that one they tried to put on the big screen?
They did. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, I never went to see it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Oh, it was meant to lead to a series of movies, and it's not by out. This was Time Saban's idea. Like, this wasn't Disney or Hasbro with this bad idea. The thing is to remember, Saban himself was not actually always making good decisions when going into Power Rangers. Like, every movie idea he had flopped, and don't forget, he made a lot of shit children's game shows. Yeah, like, it did not do well, and yeah, I can't, weirdly, none of the Sentai movies were actually adapted into movies. All of it was done entirely separately. Just wanted to do a quick comparison to some other long-running series. So we have 973 episodes of Power Rangers. Metal Heroes had 820. Kamen Rider has had 1,670. Super Sentai has had 2,000. But at the same time, those have also been going for several decades longer. All in all, that's actually pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, that is nearly 1,000 episodes of a kids' TV show. That's a pretty good run. I did also want to try and include Ultraman in this graph, but I literally could not figure out how many episodes it made. Genuinely, I tried for like 3 hours to even begin figuring it out.
It does just kind of keep going.
It does. Now, I wanted to talk about some of the things that Power Rangers gave to Sentai. And the big ones are the idea of having the outfits of the characters match the colours of their suits. That's so useful when you're a little kid and you're a bit stupid. The one who's wearing red is red. That helps. The other thing is the battleizers, as they call them, which is when the Red Ranger gets an extra toy that goes on over his regular things. These have been invented by Power Rangers to sell extra toys, and the first one to appear in Sentai was not only a copy of a Power Ranger suit, it actually was the suit from the Power Rangers filming. It was in a Deca Ranger post-series movie, and they literally just shipped it over from New Zealand to Japan to film that movie, and after that Japan began using the concept, which is probably why the design of them improved. And the other big thing they gave was this guy.
He did direct Forever Red, I looked it up.
Oh, good. Yeah, this guy, he started off being a fight coordinator and director for VR Troopers, and then moved on to Power Rangers, and is probably uncredited as having written written and directed, and partially directed, a colossal amount of Power Rangers. He then moved over to Japan and directed the Kamen Rider double movies, the Yudana specials, entire series of Ultraman. So if you have watched Tokusatsu, you have seen this guy's work.
He likes napalm.
He is truly prolific. So yeah, one guy can...
I was just scratching you.
Oh no, it's
Quarry Man, is that Quarry?
So, comics. Now, I'm not saying that... Here's the thing. Licensed comics, once they get a vague hit, tend to last for decades. And surprisingly, Power Rangers didn't really ever hit that. To sum it up, you see... which one is it?
One issue, that is harsh.
Image with one issue. These guys, I could only find the logo for that imprint on the front cover of the comic, which is why it's so blurry. I could only find them being sold on the website of the original writer. They're not even on Amazon or eBay. Just you have to buy them directly from the bloke who wrote it. Yes. Oh, hang on, what's happened here? 238 issues. Yeah, they finally found their successful thing. It was originally intended to be sort of like in canon and a slightly darker, more, not darker so much, you know, like aged up for the average comic book reader who, and yeah, they quickly sort of ditched the idea of this being in continuity with it, but well, as way I've done it has actually sold real toys. Like there are toys that are just for things from these comics. It's likely to keep on going. Here's the thing, licensed comics generally far outlive what they're based on, so this comic could still be going in 10 years, or the studio that makes it could go bankrupt. But I would say the Power Ranger comics are likely to stay around for ages. I won't go too much into any of the other ones because they're basically, we drew an episode of Power Rangers is how you'd sum them up. They're nothing inventive. Now, the odds of bringing back Power Rangers. Well, to summarise briefly, when I found a lot of articles saying like, they're going to make a movie, they're going to do a reboot, they're going to do a reboot movie, they're going to blah blah blah. There was no footage of a poster or a name or anything for any of these series. So what I did was, I made my own poster. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Super Mega Storm Force Fury, which I believe is the platonic ideal of a Power Rangers name. The best way to sum it is, if I see a poster, I will believe it's going to happen. If I see, you know, like, you can buy tickets to see this movie, I'll believe it's going to happen. It could happen. The thing is, it could happen.
Yeah, they're
But-
rebooting everything these days.
Yeah, and they're doing...
Who currently has the rights?
Hasbro still. And they are doing a remastering of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which is going to, I think it's just going to be the original episodes, but you know, like upscaled a bit so it doesn't look so...
Is it still going to say betrayed and horrible?
I hope they add just that in, like nothing else. Nothing else should be in the start. But yeah, that's likely to honestly stay on TV for a while. They'll probably look slightly better than these, although they won't be as dear to my heart.
Sentai's got a bit weirder as well recently. So.
Sentai is not...
I
Here's the
loved
thing.
King Oja
You
though.
could describe anything. You could say it will be all original footage. You could say it'll be an adaptation of the comics, or they'll pick a random series and adapt it.
Just don't do the terrifying wheel heads.
Bring back the wheelheads.
No.
Stop now. Here's they stop.
But yes, that's what I've got for this one. Power Rangers was a show that did something unique, brought something unique to the world. It was important to me. I think it's probably important to a lot of people. It got a lot of us into Tokusatsu. And it's done for now. But we'll see. At the next Minamicon, I'm looking to do not so much a history of Tokusatsu, but a history of Tokusatsu Gaiden, where now they've announced the theme is Mecha, I'm thinking of doing we all get together and create a tier list of which Sentai mecha is sexiest.
Isn't that the shit Super Sentai?
Then don't spoil the winner.
Can it be the one with the train?
I assure you.
If you know, you know.
Nothing's beating the dancing samba robots.
I'm going to find the sexiest picture of each mecha.
Yes.
I don't know what the next regular one I'll do is, but I think, yeah, next Minamicon, I'll have a laugh. You know, I'll do something that's less informative and more me going, do you want to shag the Zero Ranger mecha more than the Turbo mecha? But that's it, everyone. Thank you very much.